The scent of polished mahogany and expensive cologne hits me as I push open the heavy glass doors of Morgan Industries headquarters 30 minutes early. The quarterly board meeting isn't scheduled until 9, but something in Dad's voice during our brief phone call yesterday left me uneasy. Just a routine discussion about budget allocations, he'd said. The tightness in his tone suggested otherwise. The executive floor stretches before me in hushed elegance, cream-colored carpet so thick it swallows my footsteps, walnut paneling that gleams under recessed lighting. Family portraits line the corridor, generations of Morgans in formal poses, their stern expressions watching me pass. My simple charcoal pantsuit and low heels feel suddenly inadequate, a reminder of the gulf between my research-focused life and the corporate world my family inhabits. I slow my pace when I hear voices from the boardroom. The door stands slightly ajar, a sliver of light spilling into the hallway. Just sign here, William. Tech Core is ready to wire the funds as soon as we close. A voice I don't recognize, clipped and professional. 3.5 million is robbery considering what we've put into that division. My father replies, his deep voice unmistakable. It's more than fair for unproven technology. My sister Victoria's voice now, dripping with the smooth confidence that opens doors and closes deals. My heart hammers against my ribs. They're discussing my division, my research. I push the door open fully, the hinges protesting with a soft whine. 4 heads snap up in unison. Dad in his tailored Italian suit, Victoria in her signature red blazer with gold buttons that probably cost more than my monthly rent, James hunched slightly in his chair, and a thin man in spectacles I don't recognize. Papers scatter across the polished table surface. One slides toward me, and I catch the words Quantum Stability Division Asset Transfer Agreement in bold type before Victoria snatches it away. Elizabeth. Dad recovers first, his silver eyebrows drawing together. The meeting isn't for another half hour. You're selling my life's work without even telling me? The words tear from my throat, raw and disbelieving. Dad sighs, straightening his monogrammed cuffs. Your little science project has drained enough company resources, Elizabeth. 6 years of funding with nothing concrete to show investors. Nothing concrete? I step forward, hands trembling. We've achieved quantum stability at room temperature for 17 minutes. Do you have any idea what that means? Victoria laughs, the sound like breaking glass. Elizabeth's basement tinkering, she says to the stranger, who smiles thinly. Always promising breakthroughs that never materialize. I look to James, hoping for support, but he studies his Italian leather shoes, shoulders curved inward as if trying to disappear. The memory of Grandma Morgan surfaces her weathered hands gripping mine 3 months before she died. They don't understand vision, Lizzie, she'd whispered. But I do. That's why I'm setting up this trust for your research. Don't let them stop you. 6 years of 18-hour days. My small team working weekends, holidays, pushing the boundaries of what everyone said was impossible. Dad dismissing quarterly reports without reading them. Victoria mocking my expensive hobby at family dinners. And now this selling everything for a fraction of its worth to the first buyer who showed interest. This division has cost us nearly 12 million. Dad says, his tone gentler now but still dismissive. The board agrees it's time to cut our losses. The board hasn't met yet. I counter, my voice steadier than I feel. A formality. The voting shares are already aligned. He gestures to the papers. TechCore is being generous considering the circumstances. The room spins slightly. 6 years of work. My team's futures. All the potential applications we've only begun to explore: medical imaging that could revolutionize cancer detection, encryption that would make financial systems impenetrable, energy transfer systems that could slash power consumption. I turn to leave, my legs wooden, dignity the only thing I have left to preserve. At the doorway I pause, a sudden calm washing over me. Grandma's voice echoes in my mind. Remember who owns those patents, Lizzie. Remember what I taught you about protecting yourself. I turn back, meeting Dad's impatient gaze. You might want to check the ownership of those patents before you sign anything else. The words hang in the air between us. Dad's expression shifts subtly confusion, then the first flicker of uncertainty. Victoria's perfectly manicured hand freezes midair, the pen she's holding suspended above the signature line. James finally looks up, his eyes widening as understanding dawns. I walk out, closing the door behind me with a soft click that somehow sounds like thunder in the sudden silence. The revolution has begun. The next day, after getting more documents to defend my research, the morning sun slants through the blinds as I pace my living room, my fingers repeatedly dialing Margaret's number. 6 years of research. My life's work. And they tried to sell it for pocket change without even telling me. I'm outside, Margaret says when she finally answers, bringing reinforcements. I open my apartment door to find Margaret Wheaton standing there in a charcoal suit that makes my simple attire look shabby by comparison. Her Harvard Law diploma hangs in an office downtown with a view of the harbor. Behind her stands Dr. Thomas Reynolds, my research partner, clutching an accordion file bulging with papers. You were right, Margaret says, brushing past me. Her heels click decisively against my hardwood floor. We found everything. Thomas sets up his laptop on my kitchen counter, while Margaret spreads documents across my coffee table with surgical precision. The papers form a constellation of betrayal, each one a star in a universe I never wanted to discover. Your father has systematically blocked every funding request you've submitted for the past 3 years. Margaret taps a thick folder with a manicured nail. And that's not all. Thomas turns his laptop toward me. Look familiar? On screen is a PowerPoint presentation with Victoria's name prominently displayed. The slide shows quantum stability algorithms, identical to those we developed 6 months ago. She's been stealing our research. My voice sounds hollow in my ears. How? Remember Jason from IT? Thomas says. Victoria convinced him she needed administrative access to our servers for a security audit. She's been downloading our data for nearly a year. I sink onto my sofa, the room tilting slightly. She presented this as her own work? Won innovation awards for it. Thomas's normally gentle voice hardens. The quarterly bonuses she received for breakthrough thinking total more than our entire lab budget. Margaret hands me a folder labeled Morgan Industries Internal Correspondence. Inside are printouts of emails between Victoria and my father, spanning years. Don't worry about Elizabeth's funding requests, reads one from Dad. The board never sees them. I make sure of it. Another from Victoria. Had dinner with the TechCore executives. They're very interested in quantum stability applications. I told them my division is making significant progress. My father's response chills me. Good. Elizabeth's little project is bleeding money. When the time comes, we'll transition ownership to your division. Family legacy matters more than individual credit. My hands shake, anger rising like bile. I think of all the weekends my team worked, all the progress reports Dad never read, all the times Victoria mocked my hobby while secretly stealing from it. I look up at Margaret, who stands with arms crossed, waiting. We're going back there, I say, rising. Now. An hour later, we stride into Morgan Industries headquarters. The receptionist, recognizing me, buzzes us through without question. In the elevator, Margaret hands me a thick legal document. Your grandmother was smarter than all of them combined. She says, the patents are ironclad, registered in your name, funded through her trust. Your father can't touch them. The boardroom falls silent when I push open the door. Dad sits at the head of the table, Victoria beside him looking smug in a perfectly tailored burgundy suit. James occupies his usual place, shoulders hunched, eyes downcast. 3 board members I recognize as Dad's golf partners occupy chairs along one side. Elizabeth. Dad's voice carries a warning. This is a private meeting. About my research division, I say, stepping inside. Margaret and Thomas follow, closing the door firmly behind us. So I should be here. Victoria's smile tightens. We were just discussing asset realignment. Nothing that concerns endpoint. You mean theft? Thomas interrupts, placing a flash drive on the table. Of intellectual property that doesn't belong to either of you? Margaret steps forward, her presence filling the room despite her small stature. I've prepared documentation showing systematic intellectual property theft, fraudulent representation of research, and misappropriation of corporate resources. She slides copies to each board member. Elizabeth's patents are independently owned through the Eleanor Morgan Trust. Any attempt to sell them to TechCore constitutes corporate fraud. The color drains from Victoria's face as she snatches a copy, scanning the pages rapidly. You always were dramatic, Elizabeth, Dad says, though uncertainty creeps into his tone. This is business, not personal. Stealing my work is very personal, I reply, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. As is blocking my funding while Victoria paraded my research as her own. Victoria slams her palm on the table. Innovation doesn't count unless it has my name on it. You've always been content hiding in your lab while I built relationships. Made things happen. You mean taking credit for others' work? Thomas projects emails onto the wall screen. Victoria's correspondence with Jason in IT, instructions for accessing our server, file transfers of our research data. One of the board members, an older woman with silver hair, examines the documents with a deepening frown. William, if these allegations are true. They're not, Dad interrupts. Elizabeth has always had an overactive imagination, playing in her lab while the rest of us ran a business. He rises, towering over the table. His gaze locks on mine, cold fury radiating from his eyes. You'll never work in this industry again. I made you. I can break you. The words hang between us, a declaration of war. 6 years ago, they would have crushed me. Today, they strengthen my resolve. The patents are in my name, I say quietly. Funded by grandmother's trust. She saw what you couldn't, or wouldn't. The boardroom falls silent. Even Victoria stops flipping through papers, her face a mask of calculation. The silver-haired board member stands. I believe we need an emergency meeting tomorrow morning. All board members present, full financial disclosure. She looks pointedly at Dad, no exceptions. Dad's face reddens as he realizes the situation isn't fully under his control. This meeting is adjourned until tomorrow. I gather my things, acutely aware of every eye in the room following my movements. As I reach the door, Victoria's voice cuts through the silence. Family loyalty used to mean something to you, Elizabeth. Her words drip with venom. Grandmother would be ashamed. I pause, hand on the doorknob. No, Victoria. Grandmother knew exactly who you were. That's why she left the trust to me. The door closes behind us with a soft click, but I hear it like thunder in my ears. In the hallway, Margaret squeezes my arm. First round to you, she whispers, but tomorrow's the real battle. I nod, the weight of what lies ahead settling on my shoulders. This isn't just about my research anymore. It's about truth, justice, and the revolution has only begun. The email notification from PR Newswire pings as I stare at my apartment ceiling. It's been 6 hours since the boardroom ambush. I force myself to look at my phone screen, already knowing what I'll find. Morgan Industries addresses leadership concerns in quantum division. The press release quotes my father extensively about his deep concern for Elizabeth's well-being and recent erratic behavior. Victoria appears in paragraph 3, expressing heartbreak over family matters becoming business issues. The subtext is clear. I'm unstable, unreliable, dangerous to the company's future. I hurl my phone across the room, where it bounces harmlessly off the worn sofa cushions. The apartment feels suddenly claustrophobic, bookshelves overflowing with quantum theory texts, coffee table buried under journal articles, kitchenette counters supporting graduated cylinders I'd brought home to run calculations after hours. My phone buzzes again. Unknown number. Your keycard access has been terminated, Doctor. Morgan. The security manager's voice is professionally neutral. Your team has been placed on administrative leave pending review. My team? The words come out strangled. 7 brilliant minds, their livelihoods now hanging by threads because of me. I'm sorry. Director's orders. He hangs up before I can respond. I sit motionless as golden afternoon light filters through blinds I haven't adjusted in days. A text from Dr. Reynolds flashes on my screen. Don't panic. Trust me. 3 sharp knocks at my door startle me from spiraling thoughts. Through the peephole, I see 5 people huddled in my narrow hallway, arms laden with cardboard boxes. Elizabeth, open up. Dr. Reynolds' familiar voice, urgent but steady. I unlock the door to find my entire research team, -2 standing there, Reynolds, Aditi, Marcus, Cooper, and Simone. Their faces show determination rather than the defeat I expected. You've got about 20 minutes before security realizes we removed these from the lab, Reynolds says, brushing past me with a heavy box. The others follow, transforming my living room into an impromptu storage facility. What is all this? I ask, stunned by their synchronized efficiency as they unpack equipment, external hard drives, and stacks of notebooks. Aditi, our algorithm specialist, grins. We saw this coming 6 months ago when your sister started asking those oddly specific questions about our encryption protocols. You knew? My voice cracks. We didn't know exactly what they planned. Reynolds explains, connecting a laptop to an external drive. But we've worked with your family long enough to recognize when the vultures start circling. Marcus, our quietest team member, speaks up. We've been backing up everything. Off-site. Triple redundancy. And working weekends at my place, adds Cooper, pushing his glasses up his nose, which, no offense, has better coffee than the lab. Simone pulls a flash drive from her pocket and holds it up like a trophy. But this is the real prize. Breakthrough progress on the quantum stability algorithm. 3 weeks of work they don't know about. Simone pulls a flash drive from her pocket. A knock at the door silences the room. Reynolds motions everyone to freeze as I approach the peephole. James stands alone in the hallway, shoulders hunched, looking both ways like a character in a spy film. I open the door just enough to block his view of my living room. What do you want? 5 minutes. His voice lacks its usual corporate polish. Please. I step into the hallway, pulling the door closed behind me. Make it fast. James runs a hand through his thinning hair. I knew. He admits, unable to meet my eyes. About the sale. About Victoria stealing your research notes. About the campaign to discredit you that launched this morning. The hallway narrows as blood rushes to my head. And you did nothing. I was a coward. His admission hangs between us. But I'm done with that now. He pulls a folder from inside his jacket. Victoria's division hasn't produced original research in years. It's all acquisition and rebranding. These are the financial records proving it. I take the folder without opening it. Why now? James finally meets my gaze. Dad built an empire with brute force, but you could change the world. His eyes flick to my apartment door. Your team refused TechCore's offers this morning. Every single one of them. $500,000 each to jump ship, and they all said no. Something warm unfurls in my chest, pushing against the cold anger that's been my companion since the boardroom. Dad doesn't understand loyalty he can't buy. James says. That makes you dangerous to him. After James leaves, I return to find my team huddled around Reynolds' laptop, faces illuminated by scrolling code. Henderson and Farouk are still at the lab. Reynolds explains, playing along to feed us information. The PR campaign is just the beginning, I tell them, sinking into my lone armchair. They'll come after all of you next. Your careers, your reputations. They already have, Simone says, sliding her phone across the coffee table. On the screen, a series of texts from recruiters offering fresh starts, away from the Morgan situation. Cooper snorts. TechCore offered me a corner office and stock options. I told them I don't work for thieves. Aditi nods firmly. Your grandmother funded my doctoral research. Loyalty isn't just about paychecks. The mention of my grandmother sends me to the bookshelf where I keep her letters. Between quantum theory textbooks sits a worn leather portfolio. Inside, among birthday cards and graduation notes, I find the letter I vaguely remembered written 2 weeks before she died. My hands tremble as I read her spidery handwriting. The charter amendment is filed with Harrington. If William ever tries to appropriate your work, Article 16 automatically redistributes voting shares. He never reads the fine print, darling. That's always been his weakness. I work through the night, poring over company documents with new understanding, while my team catches sleep in shifts on my sofa and floor. Near dawn, I find it Article 16, Section 3, Paragraph 7. The clause that changes everything. Grandma knew this day might come. I whisper to her photograph on my desk as the first light of morning streaks through my blinds. My phone buzzes insistently. Then again, and again. The first message is from the patent office. My quantum stability algorithm officially granted. The second, National Science Foundation breakthrough designation confirmed. The third makes me sit up straight, a smile spreading across my exhausted face. Initial licensing interest starting at $4.2 billion. Bye. I look around at my sleeping team, at the boxes of research they rescued, at James's folder of evidence, at Grandma's letters. They have no idea what's coming. The next morning, the boardroom feels different today. 13 members of the Morgan Industries board sit in leather chairs around the massive walnut table, their expressions ranging from curious to concerned. The emergency meeting called for 9 o'clock sharp has everyone on edge. I stand in the corridor, watching through the glass wall as Dad checks his watch for the third time in 5 minutes. Margaret squeezes my arm. Ready? I smooth my tailored charcoal suit, not the simple pantsuit from last week, but something with just enough authority to make a statement. I've been ready for 6 years. We enter, flanked by my legal team carrying sleek portfolios. The room falls silent. Dad rises from his chair at the head of the table, face flushing. "This is a closed board meeting," he announces, voice sharp. "Elizabeth, you and your entourage need to leave immediately." Before I can respond, Dorothy Walker, the silver-haired board chair and my grandmother's oldest friend, taps her gavel. "William, I called this emergency meeting at the request of several board members who have concerns about yesterday's attempted sale." She nods toward me. "I believe we should hear what Dr. Morgan has to say." Dr. Morgan. The formal acknowledgement of my credentials sends Victoria's perfectly plucked eyebrows shooting upward. I take my position at the presentation screen while my team distributes leather-bound folders to each board member. The weight of 13 pairs of eyes bears down on me, but for once, I don't feel small. "Thank you for—" I begin. "This is ridiculous," Victoria interrupts, standing abruptly. Her voice rises with each word. "My sister is attempting to steal research funded by this company. She's been mentally unstable since our grandmother died, and now she's trying to sabotage a legitimate business deal." Dad nods, adding, "I move to adjourn this meeting and handle this family matter privately." "Second," calls out Vernon Pierce, Dad's golf partner and reliable yes man. I remain perfectly still, waiting. Dorothy glances at the folder before her, then shakes her head. "Motion denied. Please continue, Dr. Morgan." Victoria slams her palm against the table. "She has no right to—" "The patents for the quantum stability algorithm are registered in my name," I say, my voice steady. "They were funded entirely by grandmother's independent trust, not Morgan Industries. The documentation is in your folders. Section 1. The rustle of turning pages fills the room. James, sitting halfway down the table, studies the papers intently, refusing to meet Dad's glares. Furthermore, I continue, clicking to the next slide. The National Science Foundation has officially designated our breakthrough as a technology of national significance. I pause, letting the prestigious seal on the screen register. Initial bidding for licensing starts at $4.2 billion, not the $3.5 million in the TechCore contract you attempted to execute yesterday. A collective intake of breath sweeps through the room. Vernon Pierce's mouth hangs open. Dorothy's eyes widen behind her glasses. "That's preposterous," Dad sputters. "No quantum technology is worth—" The Department of Defense disagrees. Margaret interjects smoothly, directing the board to Section 3, as does MIT's Quantum Computing Center and 7 major tech corporations, who have already submitted preliminary bids. Victoria's face drains of color, her knuckles white against the polished table. This is a bluff. She's always been jealous of my success. "No bluff," I reply, clicking to the next slide. "But speaking of success, the FBI has some interesting questions about your division's research claims over the past 3 years. The forensic accounting report is in Section 4. I walk slowly to the center of the room, where I can see each face clearly. "But there's something else you should know. Section 5 contains a clause from Morgan Industries' founding charter, inserted by my grandfather and reinforced by my grandmother before her death." Board members flip frantically to the tabbed section. "In the event of attempted intellectual property appropriation, voting shares automatically shift to the person whose IP was threatened." I let my gaze rest on Dad. "As of yesterday, when you tried to force this sale, I became controlling shareholder of Morgan Industries." The room erupts. Questions fire from all directions, but notably, they're directed at me rather than Dad. For the first time in my life, I see genuine fear in my father's eyes. He pushes back his chair and stands. "This meeting is over. My lawyers will—" "The meeting isn't adjourned yet, Dad," I say, the word Dad feeling foreign in this context. "Please take your seat." These words, these simple words that freeze him mid-stride. The boardroom falls silent as the power shift becomes palpable. For perhaps the first time in decades, William Morgan hesitates, then slowly lowers himself back into his chair. Dorothy taps her gavel gently. "I believe the board has several questions for our new majority shareholder." I nod, maintaining my composure despite the thundering of my heart. The revolution isn't just beginning. It's already won. The boardroom atmosphere is familiar today. My nameplate gleams at the head of the mahogany table where Dad sat for 30 years. 1 week into my chairmanship, and the leather still feels stiff beneath me, unyielding, as if rejecting my presence. Board members file in with cautious smiles. Their eyes dart between me and the empty seats, where Victoria and Dad will soon sit. James slips in quietly, nodding as he takes his place, his usual hunched posture slightly more upright today. When Dad and Victoria enter, the temperature seems to drop 10 degrees. Victoria's red blazer burns like a warning signal. Dad wears his power suit charcoal gray with subtle pinstripes that cost more than most people's monthly mortgage payments. Elizabeth. Dad's voice carries none of the deference the others showed. He sits without waiting for my invitation, Victoria following his lead. This meeting will now come to order, I announce, surprising myself with the steadiness in my voice. Before I can continue, Dad slides a folder across the table. A proposal for family reconciliation, for the good of the company. Victoria leans forward. The press would love hearing about a daughter's hostile takeover. Think of the headlines: family betrayal at Morgan Industries. Stock prices won't hold if this gets ugly. Their lawyer, a jowly man named Richard Walters, produces a document with practiced efficiency. A cease and desist regarding your use of Morgan family patents. The family name is trademarked, and your grandmother's trust doesn't supersede certain corporate bylaws. The old Elizabeth would have wilted under this assault, the woman who spent 6 years being dismissed as Dad's quirky daughter playing scientist in the basement. But that woman no longer exists. Before we address these concerns, I say, tapping my tablet screen, I'd like to introduce the board to Project Helios. The wall screen illuminates with images of a gleaming research facility I've kept hidden for 3 years. Funded by grandmother's trust, and built in an old warehouse 30 miles from Morgan Industries. While you were busy undermining my work, I continue, swiping through slides showing cutting-edge laboratories, my team achieved quantum supremacy that maintains stability for 78 minutes. We've applied this technology to protein folding algorithms that have already identified 3 potential cancer treatments. Dad's face remains impassive, but a muscle twitches in his jaw. Additionally, our carbon capture technology has attracted significant attention. I pause, letting the tension build. The government has awarded us contracts totaling $7 billion. Victoria's pen clatters to the table. James straightens fully now, his eyes wide. Morgan Industries stock has risen 70% since news of my patents broke last week. I continue. Any questions? The silence stretches until Dorothy Walker, Grandma's old friend and longest-serving board member, speaks. I believe we'd all like to hear more about these developments, Elizabeth. I nod to Margaret, who distributes tablets to each board member. These contain the results of a forensic audit of the innovation division for the past 5 years. Victoria's face drains of color as she scrolls through the document. You'll note that Victoria's division hasn't produced original research since 2019. What they have produced is a systematic pattern of fraud, including falsified test results and plagiarized research. This is ridiculous, Victoria splutters, but her protest lacks conviction. Page 12 details Dad's negotiations with Meridian Global to sell controlling interest in Morgan Industries to foreign investors without board approval. Dad slams his hand on the table. You've overstepped, Elizabeth. The final page, I continue as if he hadn't spoken, shows comparative financial growth across divisions. My research area is the only consistently profitable sector, despite having the smallest budget allocation. The silence that follows feels like the eye of a hurricane. What happens now? Asks Harold Stevens, Dad's golfing buddy and longtime ally. I straighten my simple blazer. William Morgan will transition to Chairman Emeritus, a ceremonial role with no operational authority. Dad stands, his face flushed. You can't do this. You taught me business isn't personal, Dad. Consider this a lesson in your own philosophy. I nod to security waiting by the door. Victoria's employment is terminated, effective immediately. Criminal charges regarding the fraudulent research are pending. Victoria jumps to her feet, knocking her chair backward. You think you can destroy me? I'll burn this company to the ground before I let you win. As security escorts her out, her threats echo down the hallway. You're destroying the Morgan legacy. You'll regret this. I turn to James. The CFO position remains yours, with a 6-month probationary period under oversight from an independent committee. Relief washes over his face. Thank you, Elizabeth. I won't let you down. Dorothy Walker will serve as interim COO during our transition period. I continue. All in favor of approving this restructuring plan? One by one, hands rise. Even Harold Stevens, after a moment's hesitation, raises his. Dad remains standing, his hand firmly at his side, but it doesn't matter. The vote is unanimous without him. As the meeting adjourns, Margaret touches my arm. A reporter from the Financial Times is waiting for a statement. In the atrium, camera lights flash as I approach the podium. The journalist from the Times steps forward. Dr. Morgan, what happens to Morgan Industries now? The question hangs in the air as I consider the weight of legacy, the responsibility of power, and the future stretching before me. The company that bears my name but never valued my vision. The family that shares my blood but rarely my values. Dad watches from the boardroom doorway, his expression unreadable. For the first time in my life, I don't search his face for approval. The scent of fresh paint and lemon polish greets me as I guide a cluster of eager young scientists through the glass-walled corridors of what was once Morgan Industries' fortress-like headquarters. 6 months have transformed the space completely. Gone are the heavy mahogany doors and closed offices, replaced by transparent walls and collaborative spaces where researchers freely exchange ideas. Our quantum stability lab is through here, I explain, smoothing the simple but elegant navy blazer I've paired with tailored black pants. No designer labels, just quiet confidence. Every workstation has direct access to our central computing hub. A young woman with bright eyes raises her hand. Dr. Morgan, is it true your team achieved stability for over 80 minutes now? I smile. 87 minutes and counting. And please, call me Elizabeth. Later, I stand in the boardroom where my life changed forever. The polished table that once held the papers meant to steal my work now displays our newest patents, quantum-based cancer detection technology, with a 96% success rate. The board members listen attentively, so different from the dismissive faces of 6 months ago. The early clinical trials have exceeded expectations. I explain, watching their expressions shift from interest to genuine awe. Targeted quantum imaging allows us to detect cellular changes 3 years earlier than conventional methods. When the applause dies down, the boardroom door opens. My mother Rebecca stands hesitantly in the doorway, notably absent her usual strand of pearls and designer clothes. Her simple gray dress makes her look smaller, more human. I didn't mean to interrupt, she says softly. You're not interrupting, I assure her as the meeting concludes. When we're alone, I slide a folder across the table. I'd like you to consider heading the Morgan Charitable Foundation. Her fingers tremble slightly as she opens it. After everything that happened with your father and Victoria. Grandmother would have wanted healing where possible, I say, even if some bridges can't be rebuilt. The afternoon finds me celebrating with my original research team, now directors of their own divisions. Dr. Reynolds raises a glass of champagne, his loyalty throughout our darkest days never forgotten, to Elizabeth, who saw what the rest of us could only imagine. James stands nearby, still proving himself as the reformed CFO, but making genuine progress. The shift in him since choosing integrity over our father's corruption remains a daily revelation. Before leaving, I detour to my office, where a young physicist, Allison, waits anxiously with calculations spread across my desk. Everyone says my approach is too theoretical. She confesses, shoulders hunched with familiar self-doubt. I recognize myself in her uncertainty. Never let anyone tell you your ideas are too ambitious. I tell her, thinking of all the times my own vision was dismissed. The quiet ones are usually building revolutions. That evening, I hang grandmother's portrait beside the framed first patent that changed everything. The small brass plate beneath reads, "Never underestimate the quiet ones, they're usually the ones building revolutions." At my desk, I review plans for our new research campus when a news alert flashes across my screen. Morgan Industries' value has tripled since the restructuring. I smile, close my laptop, and glance at the clock. 5:30 p.m. For the first time in years, I'm leaving on time. The revolution isn't just about quantum science, it's about changing how we value what truly matters. The September sunset bleeds orange across my parents' lake, turning the water into liquid copper. I stand at the edge of the weathered dock, letting the familiar creaks beneath my feet ground me in reality. Something about this family gathering feels rehearsed, like everyone received a script except me. "Marin!" Shaylin's voice rings out behind me, deliberately bright. "Look what we brought." I turn to see my sister and her fiancé Rory approaching, a bottle of champagne catching the fading light. Their smiles are wide but don't quite reach their eyes. Behind them, Mom and Dad hover near the shore, exchanging glances that set off warning bells in my head. Quite a sunset, Rory comments, his polished charm on full display. He's dressed more formally than our usual lakeside gatherings warrant, his crisp blue button-down a stark contrast to my casual sweater and jeans. Perfect evening for an announcement, Shaylin adds, threading her arm through his. The champagne bottle swings slightly in her other hand, expensive label forward. I feel my shoulders tense. An announcement? Mom and Dad drift closer, their practiced casualness making my skin prickle. Dad's hands are clasped behind his back, his tell when he's nervous about something. Mom's smile is too bright, too eager. Well, Shaylin begins, looking up at Rory with rehearsed adoration. We've been thinking about wedding venues. The word venues stretches between us like a tripwire. I've known my sister long enough to recognize when she's building up to something that's going to cost someone money. Rory produces a leather portfolio from behind his back. We've got some preliminary plans to share. The portfolio opens to reveal professional renderings of an elaborate lakeside wedding. String lights draped between trees. A floating altar. Glass pavilions erected along the shoreline. We want to get married right here, Shaylin announces. Where we grew up. Where all our memories are. I study the drawings, my stomach sinking as I note the scope of construction required. That's ambitious. $65,000, Rory states smoothly, as if mentioning the price of lunch. All-inclusive package from Lakeside Dreams Events. They're the best in the business. The silence that follows is heavy with expectation. I watch a muscle twitch in Dad's jaw. The bank turned us down, Shaylin says finally, her voice small. Something about Rory's startup being too new for a loan that size. And there it is. 5 pairs of eyes turn to me with such coordinated precision that I almost laugh. Almost. We need you to co-sign, Shaylin continues, just until Rory's next round of funding comes through. The lake breeze feels colder now. I wrap my arms around myself, remembering the last 3 times I've helped with family finances. The business loan for Dad's failed restaurant expansion. The consolidation loan for Mom's credit card debt. The down payment for Shaylin's first car. No, I say quietly. I can't. Mom's face crumples on cue. What happened to my daughters being there for each other? Marin. Dad's voice carries that familiar note of disappointment. You're the successful one. You have a responsibility to help your sister. I'd do it for you in a heartbeat, Shaylin adds, right on schedule. I close my eyes briefly, remembering the spreadsheet hidden in my desk drawer, the one tracking every loan that was never repaid, every favor that became an obligation. Every time I put my own financial security at risk because family guilt was stronger than common sense. I need to think about it, I say finally, knowing it's not the answer they want but unable to give more. The sunset has faded now, leaving the lake dark and still. Like the surface of my coffee this morning when I first saw their group text about an important family dinner. Like the quiet in my car during the drive here, when I told myself this time would be different. I look at their faces, Mom's theatrical distress, Dad's stern disapproval, Shaylin's calculated vulnerability, Rory's bland confidence. They're so certain of the outcome. So sure that I'll cave to pressure like I always have. But something has shifted in me. Maybe it's the way they coordinated this ambush. Maybe it's the realization that they see me not as a daughter or sister, but as a solution to their problems. I'll let you know tomorrow, I add, my voice steadier than I feel. The lake laps at the dock posts, a gentle rhythm that used to comfort me as a child. Now it sounds like a warning, a reminder that some tides, once turned, can never flow backward. I catch Mom's eye across the growing darkness. For just a moment I see something flicker there, not concern for my well-being or guilt over their manipulation, but fear. Fear that this time their safety net might say no. Good. It's about time they were afraid of losing something. Because I'm finally afraid of the right thing. What will happen to me if I say yes one more time? The morning after our lakeside confrontation, my home office feels like a fortress. Spreadsheets glow on dual monitors, each cell a reminder of financial wounds that never healed. I've tracked every emergency loan, every temporary bailout since I landed my first real job 12 years ago. Dad's restaurant expansion, $45,000. Mom's credit card consolidation, $32,000. Shaylin's car down payment, $12,000. The numbers blur together, a decade of one-way generosity wrapped in familial obligation. My fingers hover over the keyboard, cursor blinking in the cell where I might add, Shaylin's dream wedding, $65,000. My phone buzzes. Tova's name appears on screen, right on schedule. "Tell me you haven't signed anything," she says without preamble. The background noise suggests she's at the courthouse, probably between cases. Not yet. I minimize the spreadsheet. But they're expecting an answer today. Good, because I found something interesting about your future brother, in-laws startup. Papers shuffle on her end. 3 fraud complaints filed with the state medical board. His revolutionary health monitoring system appears to be vaporware wrapped in buzzwords. My stomach clenches. That tracks with the bank's loan rejection. Marin. Tova's voice softens with the tone she reserves for difficult truths. This isn't just about a wedding anymore. This is a pattern, and you're the safety net they keep jumping into. 2 hours later, I'm sitting across from Tova at Asheville Coffee Traders, watching steam rise from an untouched Americano. The cafe's exposed brick walls and salvaged wood tables usually comfort me, but today they feel like witnesses to my moral compromise. Tova slides a legal document across the table. It's called a protective default clause. If they miss 2 payments or attempt to transfer assets before repayment, ownership of the lakeside property transfers to you. I can't trick my own family, I protest, but my hand already reaches for the document. They're already tricking you. Tova's dark eyes hold mine. The question is whether you'll let them do it again. The clause is elegant in its simplicity. 3 paragraphs of carefully worded protection, buried in standard loan language. My family would retain the lake house unless they default or try to sell before repaying me. It's insurance, not malice. But my hands shake as I fold the document into my bag. That evening, our living room becomes a stage for the final act. Mom perches on the edge of the sofa, Dad stands by the fireplace, and Shaylin and Rory share the love seat. The loan documents spread across our coffee table like a trap waiting to spring. This clause here, I say, pointing to the relevant section, it's just standard protection for co-signers. Mom waves her hand dismissively. Oh, all that legal mumbo-jumbo. We're family, darling. Exactly why we should do this properly. I keep my voice steady, professional. The voice I use in board meetings when emotions run high. They sign without reading, passing the pen like a relay baton. Shaylin doesn't even pause at the clause that could cost her parents their lake house. Her signature flows across the page with practiced confidence, the kind that comes from never facing consequences. A week later, during a wedding planning session at the lake house, Rory's laptop screen catches my eye. An email confirmation, 2-1, way tickets to Costa Rica, departing 2 days after the wedding. When he notices my gaze, the screen snaps shut. Shaylin's laugh turns nervous, high-pitched. Just dreaming about honeymoon options, she says quickly. Too quickly. That night, I dream of drowning in spreadsheet cells filled with red numbers. I wake gasping, sheets twisted around me like constraints. The next morning finds me at Mountain View Cemetery, kneeling beside grandmother's grave. The morning mist clings to the marble headstone where her name is carved with the same precision she applied to her life's ledgers. Am I doing the right thing? I whisper to her memory. She taught me about compound interest and emergency funds while Mom taught Shaylin about credit card rewards. My phone chirps with a message from Shaylin. You're the best sister anyone could ask for. Can't wait to see you at the cake tasting. Back home, I open my desk drawer and slide the signed documents into a folder labeled Family Protection. The label feels both true and false. Protection for my family, or protection from them? The morning sun catches the lake photo on my wall, the same view where this all began. The water looks deceptively calm, hiding currents that could pull you under if you're not careful. I think about grandmother's favorite saying, love doesn't mean setting yourself on fire to keep others warm. She'd understand this clause, this necessary armor against the people who should never make armor necessary. The folder closes with a soft finality. Sometimes protection looks like betrayal from the wrong angle. But from where I sit, watching the sun climb over my carefully ordered world, it looks like survival. The lakeside wedding is a masterpiece of denial. Crystal champagne flutes catch the sunset, transforming ordinary light into diamond fragments across the manicured lawn. Every detail I've orchestrated over the past month stands perfect and precise. White garden roses dripping from suspended copper arches, hand-calligraphed place cards, vintage crystal borrowed from 3 different antique shops. I check my phone, 5:47 p.m. The ceremony starts in 13 minutes, and I've just finished handling a minor crisis with the string quartet's electrical setup. Mom floats past in her mother of the bride glory, accepting compliments from guests while I wrestle with extension cords. "Isn't it magnificent?" she gushes to the Hendersons, our longtime neighbors. "Shaylin has such exquisite taste." I bite back the correction that I selected every detail, right down to the imported Italian linens that cost more than my first car. But that's not the story being told today. The ceremony unfolds like a perfectly rehearsed play. Shaylin emerges in her custom gown, another line item in my spreadsheets, looking exactly like the princess our parents always treated her as. When she reaches the altar, Rory's smile doesn't quite reach his eyes. His gaze slides to me, just for a moment, heavy with something that might be guilt or challenge. During the reception, I manage the vendors and timeline while Mom and Dad hold court at the head table. Shaylin's toast brings tears to every eye except mine. "To family," she says, crystal glass raised high. "Who stands by you no matter what, who lifts you up when you fall, who never keeps score." Her voice catches perfectly on the last words. "Especially my amazing sister Marin, who made all this possible." The crowd awes. I raise my glass mechanically, catching Rory's steady stare across the tent. He knows that I know, and he knows that I won't make a scene. Not here, not now. Later, while directing the cleanup crew, I discover the card in their honeymoon suite. It's fallen behind a dresser, probably knocked there in their haste to pack. The envelope reads, "Bon voyage," in Mom's looping script. Inside, a handwritten note. "Enjoy your fresh start, darlings. We'll handle everything here." My hands shake as I photograph the card, then the travel documents scattered across the desk. One-way tickets, not to Costa Rica as originally shown, but to Panama. Bank statements for accounts I've never seen. A real estate brochure for a beachfront property. Through the open window, I hear Mom and Dad on the terrace below. "They should be safely away by morning," Mom says. "I told Gloria to wait until after the brunch, but you know how Shaylin gets when she's excited." "The important thing is they're clear before any questions start," Dad replies. "The temporary relocation story should hold up long enough." I sink into the honeymoon suite's plush armchair, the truth settling like lead in my stomach. They all knew. Every single one of them knew. The next morning's wedding brunch becomes a masterclass in performance art. Shaylin and Rory's seats remain conspicuously empty as Mom weaves her way through concerned guests. "Oh, they were just too excited to wait," she trills. "Young love, you know how it is." My phone buzzes with Shaylin's text. "Taking off sooner, the start of our adventure. Love you, sis. He-eh." 3 hours later, her Instagram lights up with a sunset photo. 2 silhouettes on a beach, drinks in hand. The caption reads, "Debt-free in destiny, bound. New life, no looking back." I find my parents in the lake house kitchen, methodically packing leftover wedding cake into Tupperware containers. The facade finally cracks when I show them the Instagram post. "They're young," Mom says, her voice sharp with defensive anger. "They deserve a fresh start, away from all this pressure." "Pressure?" I laugh, the sound hollow. "You mean consequences?" Dad doesn't look up from his task. "The bank won't actually come after us. These things have a way of working themselves out." "The bank won't have to," I say quietly. "We'll see what happens next." That evening, I sit across from Tova at our usual table at Asheville Coffee Traders. My hands wrap around a cooling mug as the story spills out. "I knew something was coming," I say, "but the coordination of it all." They played their parts perfectly. Tova agrees, her dark eyes fierce with protective anger. "But so did you." She's right. While they were planning their great escape, I was building my own safety net. Alex, my accountant friend, sits to my left, already sketching out the tax implications. Karen, my real estate agent, takes notes on her phone about property values and transfer procedures. These are my people-chosen family who show up with spreadsheets and solutions instead of guilt and demands. "The first loan payment is due in 30 days, Alex says, pulling up a calendar. "Want to bet how that's going to go?" I mark the date in my phone. The 15th of September. 30 days to prepare for the inevitable default. "You're not wrong for protecting yourself," Tova says softly. Sometimes love looks like letting people face their own consequences. I think about grandmother again, about her lessons on compound interest and responsibility, about how sometimes the hardest part of love is knowing when to stop cushioning the fall. My phone lights up with another Instagram notification. Shaylin and Rory on a yacht, champagne glasses raised to the camera. Below, Mom has commented, "Living your best life. So proud." I close the app and open my calendar instead. The 15th of September glows on the screen, a countdown to the moment when facades crumble and truth demands its due. Now, I say, squaring my shoulders, it begins. On the first payment day, the First National Bank lobby gleams with polished marble and old money restraint. My heels click a steady rhythm as I follow Mr. Davidson, senior loan officer, to his office. The leather portfolio in my hands contains every document, every piece of evidence, organized with the same precision I once used to plan Shaylin's perfect wedding. "I appreciate you meeting with me on such short notice," I say, settling into the chair across from his desk. He adjusts his reading glasses. "Your message mentioned concerns about the Halstead-Crawford wedding loan?" "Yes." I open the portfolio, removing a carefully tabbed stack of papers. "I'm activating the default protection clause, effective immediately." His eyebrows lift. In 15 years of banking, I doubt he's seen many people walk in voluntarily to trigger their own loan default. But then, most people don't spend months preparing for their family's betrayal. I lay out the evidence methodically. Flight records showing the one-way tickets to Panama, bank statements for the hidden accounts, property listings in foreign jurisdictions. The Instagram posts downloaded and timestamped revealing their true location. With each new document, Davidson's expression shifts from professional concern to genuine shock. "I've never seen someone so prepared for this type of situation," he says finally. "I've had practice expecting the worst." I pull out the final document, the protection clause Tova helped me draft. As you can see, Section 4.3 specifically addresses fraudulent intent and unauthorized relocation of funds. I'm exercising my right to initiate immediate default proceedings. Davidson checks his watch, makes a note. Default activation recorded at 9:47 a.m. the 15th of September. He looks up. "Are you certain about this, Miss Halstead?" Family matters can be complicated. They certainly can be. I close the portfolio with a quiet snap. That's precisely why I'm here. The first text arrives before I reach my car. "Mom, the bank just called. What have you done?" I start the engine, letting the subsequent messages pile up unread. By the time I reach my office, there's a voicemail from Dad. "What have you done to this family?" His voice trembles with barely controlled rage. "Your mother is beside herself. Call us immediately." I forward the voicemail to Tova, adding it to our growing documentation file. My phone buzzes again, a news alert about Rory's startup. Crawford tech investors pull out amid fraud concerns. I allow myself a small smile. Tova's timing with the SEC tip was perfect. Shaylin's Instagram story appears next. A sunset beach photo overlaid with text. "My own sister betrayed me. Blood isn't always thicker than water. Heartbroken family betrayal." The pressure builds throughout the week. Pastor Mike leaves 3 messages about healing family rifts through prayer. The Hendersons cross to the other side of Harris Teeter when they spot me in the produce section. "Mrs. Carlton, my 3rd-grade teacher, corners me outside the post office. "Sweetheart, surely there's a better way to handle this," she says, patting my arm. "Family is everything." I meet her eyes steadily. "Yes, it is. That's exactly why I'm doing this." The doorbell rings at 8:15 p.m. on Saturday. I know it's them before I open the door. Mom's perfume carries on the evening air. "You will fix this." Dad's voice is steel wrapped in silk. "Whatever point you're trying to make." "Curtis." Mom cuts him off, already pushing past me into the foyer. "Honey, we know you're upset, but this vindictiveness, it's not you." I close the door quietly, turning to face them. "You're right. This isn't like me. The old me would have covered for Shaylin again, written another check, kept another secret." "We're still your parents," Mom says, tears gathering. "Everything we've done has been to protect this family." "Parents protect their children," I say, my voice steady despite the tremor in my chest. "You protected Shaylin from consequences. Who protected me?" The silence stretches between us until Dad breaks it. "The lake house is being listed Monday. A quick sale. Very discreet. I assume that satisfies whatever revenge you're seeking. My phone vibrates right on schedule. Karen's name flashes on the screen. Marin? The lake house just hit the pre-market listings. As your agent, I should inform you that you have first right of refusal, given your status as co-signer on the property. I watch my parents' faces as I answer. Yes, I'd like to make an offer. The full asking price, as discussed. Mom's hand flies to her throat. Dad's face drains of color. You planned this? He whispers. I think of the separate savings account I've maintained for 7 years. Of the property assessments I've quietly gathered. Of grandmother's voice in my head. Sometimes the biggest act of love is letting people face their choices. No, I say softly. I just stopped planning around everyone else's choices. They leave without another word, the door closing with a quiet click that echoes with finality. Through the window, I watch them navigate the darkened path to their car, shoulders bent under the weight of consequences they never expected to bear. My phone lights up with another Instagram notification. I ignore it, opening instead the photo album on my phone. There's a picture from last summer me on the lake house dock at sunrise, coffee mug in hand, watching the mist rise off the water. Soon that view will be mine, purchased not with manipulation or deceit, but with years of careful planning and the strength to finally say, enough. I send Tova a quick text. It's done. Her reply comes immediately. You okay? I look around my quiet house, feeling the unfamiliar lightness in my chest. For the first time in years, I can breathe without the weight of others' expectations pressing down. Yes, I type back. I finally am. The intervention ambushes me between client meetings. Aunt Rachel intercepts me in the parking garage, her church lady smile stretched too tight. Uncle Pete materializes from behind a concrete pillar. Even Cousin Mary, who hasn't spoken to me since I refused to invest in her essential oils business, appears with convenient timing. We're here because we love you, Rachel says, shepherding me toward the elevator. The conference room door opens to reveal the full arsenal of familial manipulation. Pastor Mike stands near the window, Bible conspicuously in hand. 3 sets of aunts and uncles occupy the chairs usually reserved for my investment clients. Mom and Dad anchor the head of the table, and on the oversized screen behind them, Shaylin's tear-streaked face fills the video feed. You're making a terrible mistake, Mom says, rising. We're your family. I remain in the doorway, briefcase steady in my grip. I have a closing in 40 minutes. The closing is exactly why we're here. Pastor Mike steps forward, voice gentle with practiced concern. Your sister is stranded at the Panama Embassy. Your parents are facing financial ruin. Surely there's room for Christian forgiveness. Therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourselves with compassion. Aunt Rachel quotes, reaching for my hand. I step back. Interesting choice. The full verse continues with kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Where was that compassion when you helped Shaylin pack for Panama? The room stills. Rachel's hand drops. I don't know what you're talking about, she stammers. I open my briefcase, removing a single photo. It shows Rachel's minivan in my parents' driveway, trunk open, loaded with suitcases. The timestamp matches their planned departure date. You drove them to the airport, I say quietly. Just like you drove Mom to the bank when she forged my signature on Shaylin's first car loan. Just like you helped Dad hide the paperwork when they borrowed against my college fund to cover Shaylin's credit card debt. That was different, Mom interjects. You were doing so well and Shaylin needed. I needed parents, I cut in, not accountants searching for their next withdrawal. On screen, Shaylin's tears flow faster. Marin, please. I'm stuck here. They won't let me leave. Rory's accounts are frozen. You're destroying everything. No, the SEC is investigating everything. There's a difference. Mom sways dramatically, collapsing into Dad's arms. I can't breathe. The stress. My heart. Your heart is fine, I say, checking my watch. Your blood pressure was perfect at your checkup last week. I have the insurance claim to prove it. A month later, the closing room at Davidson and Mark's Law feels colder than the air outside. Mom and Dad sit rigid beside their attorney. Shaylin's absence is marked by her power of attorney papers, signed hurriedly at the embassy. Rory's lawyer attends via phone, his client unavailable due to ongoing legal matters. I spread my documentation across the polished table. A decade of canceled checks, loan agreements, credit card statements. Each page represents a moment when family obligation trumped self-preservation. The final document is a simple spreadsheet of every dollar they've extracted. Every promise broken, every manipulation logged with accountant's precision. Jesus, Dad whispers, scanning the total. That's what the lake house is actually worth to me, I say. Every penny I've given, every debt I've covered, every family emergency I've solved. I'm not taking anything that wasn't already mine. The signing process feels endless. Each signature lands like a guillotine blade, severing old bonds. When Mom's hand shakes too badly to hold the pen, Dad steadies her wrist. Their attorney keeps his eyes fixed on the papers, professional demeanor cracking only when he reaches the final page. This concludes the transfer of ownership, he announces. The property at 1847 Lakeside Drive now belongs solely to Maren Halstead. Dad's shoulders slump. We thought, you were always so capable, so steady. We saw you as the solution, I finish. Not the daughter. You were always so perfect, Shaylin's voice crackles through the speakerphone. So easy to use. Everyone knew exactly which buttons to push. Mom's sob catches in her throat. Shaylin, don't. That ends today, I say, standing. The keys feel heavy in my palm, worn brass warming to my touch. I'll have the locks changed by sunset. The lake house stands silent when I arrive, autumn light painting the windows gold. I move through each room methodically, removing family photos from the walls. Mom and Dad at their anniversary party. Shaylin's graduation. The forced Christmas card poses that painted us as the perfect family. The last photo stops me a candid shot from years ago. I'm teaching Shaylin to swim, her small hands gripping my arms, trust shining in her eyes. Before the manipulation began. Before I became the family ATM instead of the family protector. The dock creaks under my feet as I walk to its edge, just as I did that morning last summer. The water reflects the setting sun, ripples catching fire. Behind me, the lake house windows darken one by one, shadows deepening in rooms that hold decades of memories. I pull out my phone, opening the family group chat that's been silent since the intervention. My thumbs hover over the keyboard, a lifetime of explanations and justifications rising to the surface. Instead, I type 7 words. I hope you find your way home. Then I delete the chat, slip the phone back into my pocket, and watch the sun sink below the tree line. The water laps gently at the dock posts, its rhythm steady and sure, like a heart finally beating for itself. A year later, the lake house windows catch the October sunrise differently now. Light streams through unobstructed glass, no longer filtered through heavy drapes chosen by my mother's decorator. The great room, once cluttered with antiques meant to impress weekend guests, breathes easier with clean lines and comfortable furniture. My furniture, my choices. I curl into the Window Seata renovation edition that would have horrified Mom and wrap my hands around a steaming mug. The satisfied loan statement hangs framed on the wall opposite, its final zero balance a daily reminder that some debts can be settled. Others, like the trust broken by family, require a different kind of accounting. Tell me about forgiveness, Dr. Chen says at our weekly session. Her office overlooks a Japanese garden, its careful arrangement of stones and water suggesting that even chaos can find order. I'm working on it, I say, watching a maple leaf spiral into the pond. Last week I deleted 3 voicemails from Mom without listening to them. That feels like progress. And Shaylin? I trace the seam of the leather armchair. She sent another email. They're still in Panama. Rory's business opportunity fell through, and she needs money for plane tickets home. What did you do? I forwarded it to Tova. A smile tugs at my mouth. She replied with links to job boards in San Jose. Dr. Chen's pen pauses. That sounds like growth. It feels more like survival. I straighten, meeting her gaze. I spent so long being the solution that I forgot how to just be the sister, or the daughter. And now? Now I'm learning to be Maren. The Lake House project helps. Each weekend brings another transformation. Fresh paint covering colonial blue walls, modern fixtures replacing Baroque monstrosities, gardens simplified from Mom's overwhelming rose collection to native plants that thrive without constant attention, like me. Tova brings housewarming gifts, practical things like toolkit and wine opener, understanding that I'm building more than just a home. She comes for Sunday brunches, filling the space with real laughter that doesn't hide agenda or leverage guilt. Your parents stopped by the office, she mentions one morning, watching me flip pancakes. They wanted to discuss options. The spatula doesn't shake in my hand. Progress. What kind? The usual. Reverse mortgage, loan restructuring. She sips her coffee. They're selling the country club membership. Dad must be devastated. The pancake lands perfectly centered on the plate. How's Mom taking it? Dramatically. Though her fainting spell didn't quite land with Davidson, he's seen too many performances. We share a knowing look. Mom's theatrical health crises always coincided with financial deadlines or uncomfortable conversations. I wonder if Dad still rushes to catch her, or if he's tired of the show too. The financial abuse support group meets monthly in the lake house sunroom. 10 chairs arranged in a circle, no hierarchy, just shared understanding. Sometimes I speak, sometimes I just listen. Every story echoes familiar notes. The guilt, the manipulation, the moment they finally said no. My brother called me selfish, a young woman says, twisting her tissue. Said I was destroying the family by not co-signing his business loan. What did you tell him? I ask. That he was right. She lifts her chin. I am being selfish. I'm finally putting myself first. The room fills with nodding heads and murmurs of recognition. I think of Shaylin's tear-streaked accusations, Mom's performance in the conference room, Dad's heavy silence. Sometimes selfish is the only way to survive. The podcast grows naturally from these meetings. Breaking free, conversations about financial family ties launches with my story, then branches into others. Each episode ends with resources, warning signs, escape strategies. The comments fill with solidarity and shared pain. This was my mother. I thought I was alone. How do I start? Tova organizes the first lakeside gathering, carefully curating the guest list. No family, no pressure, just friends who've earned their place. We grill on the deck, watch the sunset, paint the water, share stories that don't demand anything in return. To Marin, Tova raises her glass, who taught us all that some bridges are meant to burn. The toast ripples around the circle, genuine warmth replacing the artificial cheer of forced family functions. These people choose to be here. They stay because they want to, not because blood demands it. My phone buzzes as the last guest leaves. Shaylin's number, no longer sending my heart racing with panic. I let it ring twice before answering. Hi, Shay. Marin. Her voice sounds older, stripped of its practiced helplessness. I found a job, teaching English at a resort. That's good. Yeah, pause. I'm not calling for money. I know, because this time she's speaking to me, not my wallet. I miss you. Simple words, complex meaning. I miss who we were too. Before the manipulation, before I became the family bank, before trust crumbled like the shoreline after a storm. But I don't miss who we became. The silence stretches between us, heavy with unspoken apologies and accusations. Finally, she sighs. I understand. I don't like it, but I understand. That's a start. After we hang up, I walk to the dock. The setting sun gilds the water, just like that day last year when I claimed my freedom. But tonight, the lake house windows behind me glow with warmth that's truly mine. No guilt dims the light, no obligation shadows the doorway. I open my journal, another suggestion from Dr. Chanand, write the date. Below it, 3 words. I choose peace. Some debts can never be repaid. The trust broken, the years spent serving as an unwilling safety net, the childhood sacrificed to adult responsibilities. But standing here, watching darkness settle over my reclaimed sanctuary, I know that some freedom is worth any price. The water laps at the dock posts, its rhythm steady and sure, like a heart finally beating for itself, like a woman finally living her own life. The lake house lights guide me home,